how is it going, guys? Malagant here. We're going to be talking about my Paladin, and this is going to be the full build guide, hopefully. I'll obviously be looking forward to making more videos about this guy. If you have any questions or suggestions, or if you would like to see some specific content about him, feel free to tell me in the comment section down below. And throughout this video also, I'll be mentioning or talking about a couple of videos that I have made about this guy in the past week or two. They're all going to be linked in the description down below. So if I'm talking about a video that you could reach some sort of like an information or a link in, that link is going to be down below in the description. Thank you so much for joining. So this Paladin right here, I hit level 100 yesterday in the cycle, and I've been theory crafting before the cycle, and I also like tried out some Paladins before the cycle as well. So I've been playing last Epoch for some time now. It is very tanky character. Let's talk about like pros and cons a little bit really quick. It's a fun character to play, extremely chill, ridiculously tanky, and you can make him a lot more tankier than this as well. It requires some grinding, depending if you're like going to be playing Circle of Fortune, like I am, or if you're going to be in trade. I think you could actually like find your way to a little bit easier. Since it's also like not necessarily a meta character, I think you can actually like find your way towards like it's a bit easier tank items, especially. There are some like certain key pieces that you could definitely go for, but by no means they're necessary or like you know, they're mandatory. Let's say they're definitely not. So go over the skills and the passives. I will, but perhaps like let's look into how the character plays first, so that like you have an idea before we do that. So we're in 200 corruption. By no means is like incredibly high or whatever, you know. I would say around like 300 corruption is definitely possible with this character. I'll have both the survival and DPS to take it down. But since I'm playing in hardcore, so this character only has one life, right? I decided to stay in 200 corruption with my first character, which is this one. The reasoning behind this is that I want to have a level 100 available to me if I would like to make a legendary item or run a certain dungeon, or perhaps just do some endgame content. I didn't really want to like risk my character, that's all. So what this character is capable of doing, well, to finish that thing that I was just saying, 300 corruption is, in my opinion, definitely going to be possible with this character quite easily. And the damage numbers that you're seeing, they're not necessarily finalized either at all. I'll talk about this in depth pretty soon. So you can scale these numbers by a lot, but the playstyle changes a little bit, and as I said, I'll talk about this in detail very, very soon. So above 300 corruption, I'm not really sure if it's going to be good or if it's going to be, you know, very efficient or whatever. Since like I didn't play it and I didn't really like change my spec towards the one that like deals a little bit more damage than this, or a lot more damage than this. I'm going to be leaving the character right over here, and this is the playstyle that I have enjoyed doing, and I'll tell you why as well. So what this character does right now is that we have mainly 3 buttons that we press. Okay, so we have the Javelin, we have the Healing Hands, which is our mobility, this guy, and then we have the Judgement. So Javelin sets up for long range targets like this, and also buffs, but you need to hit something with your Javelin to get the buff. Also buffs, this is the buff right over here, the Sacred Forge, your next Judgment ability for 60% more damage. So the buff disappears when you Judgment. When you Judgment something, right, you not only gain Healing Hands, so the Healing Hands starts healing you, but at the same time, right over there, the Healing Hands. But at the same time, you open this circle around you, which is our main source of damage. It's called Consecrating Aura, and the Consecrating Aura is going to be dealing massive amounts of damage if you set it up right. And to only set it up right, you just Javelin something, and then you Judgment. You can Judgment just the ground as well, it doesn't really matter. If you Judgment, you know, nothing, and if you don't hit anything, then you're not going to be gaining the Healing Hands healing over time. That's the only downside to it. There's nothing else there. The cooldowns are very easy to control. The game style is extremely easy to control. You just, you know, Javelin into Judgment. The good part about this is that like the Healing Hands is capable of getting out of dodge incredibly quickly, and while you're traveling, you're not only healing yourself, but you're also granting yourself a healing over time. So the next 4 seconds you're going to be healing yourself as well. And on top of everything, you're immune. Completely immune while you're traveling, thanks to this node right over here, the Sun Shroud. The character is incredibly chill. very, very chill throughout the entire journey. I'll talk about like leveling as well. Just to finalize the pros and cons, I'm still on the same topic. Very easy to play, incredibly tanky, and as I said, you can make this tankier. We'll talk about that too. And the damage, so a little bit on the con section right over here. Throughout your journey, you're not going to be this good at damage. So maybe this is not necessarily impressive to you. It kind of is to me. This is my first character in Cycle. And so the damage is not going to be looking this way at all times. There'll be fluctuation. And at the same time, to come to here, I've actually like transitioned from this and that quite a bit. So we're going to be talking about that too in depth. But so what I'm trying to say is, if you just like go for exactly this build right over here, it might not work out properly, because like I have decided to go for this build since now I have 25 points into Judgement. Before this, I was actually dealing most of my damage with Javelin. So this is all covered. You can find the build in the description down below, obviously, if you would like to play this. If you would like to have any questions whatsoever, drop it down below in the comment section. Now let's delve into a little bit more depth. How I leveled this character. I have leveled it with, I start my Sentinel leveling always and always either with Rive or Hammer Throw. Rive is very good, simply because you can do Forged Weapons and Ignite. It is ridiculous. Hammer Throw is pretty good as well. What you do is basically you go for 2 points into Catapult and then 1 point into Spiral in that order. And you grab yourself a weapon that is capable of either igniting, bleeding, or poisoning. Or you do both at the same time, and you're going to be just shredding everything until like level 30 or something. It will just disappear, everything. If you don't believe me, go ahead and try. The rest of the points are going to be going into Ballista and Rapid Throw. So, around like level 20-ish, it is capable for you to start playing kind of this build, because Javelin is going to be available to you at level 18. I would like you to consider putting Javelin into the third socket right over here, and which is going to be unlocking at level 20. And then give it a couple of levels. The reason that you want to put it over here is because the other two abilities, I don't want you to disrupt them. So one of them is going to be probably Rive while you're leveling, or Hammer. And the other one is most likely going to be something like your mobility perhaps, or maybe a secondary damage. That's kind of up to you actually. I usually use my mobility all the way until like Holy Aura, where you're around like level 16 or something. I think when you go into the Paladin and when you become a Paladin, you gain your Holy Aura. And the Holy Aura is very good because it's capable of giving you elemental resistances and endurance. So that is why I go like lunge until like level 16, and then I take this Holy Aura into that socket, so I have like hammers and Holy Aura, and the third socket is going to be Javelin at level 20, right? So let it stay a little bit there and gain a few levels, because the points that you're going to be needing are going to be, this travel is how you're going to do Mighty Delivery, Burning Strength into 2 points of Spear to the thigh, and then afterwards Holy Trail, and lastly you're going to want Path of Judgment. So when the Path of Judgment is settled, you will be able to deal some damage now. Every time you're going to be pressing your Javelin, you're going to be leaving this firewall on the floor, and yeah, it's going to be dealing very decent damage. And we will want to like scale this now. With every level we're going to be putting 1 point to Pilgrimage, and then we're going to be putting 1 point into Spear, and you're going to bounce like that in between. That's going to be the maximum amount of damage that you can gain. So you will end up maxing out Pilgrimage first, and then the last point will go into the Spear of the Thigh. Afterwards, you are going to be leading towards Strategic Patience. Now this is where I said I was actually scaling Spear. Why do you want to do this? It's a little bit more technical and about the gameplay. Now let's talk about Judgement a little bit. Judgement is going to be replacing your hammers or Rive, whichever you played. When you actually end up like having Judgement, I think it's like 25 or 30 points into Paladin. When you get this, you could definitely drop that, put Judgement in, and you can go into the Anointed, which is the main ability that we are using right over here. When you use Judgement, it's going to be opening this circle around you, and it's going to be dealing damage around you. The thing is, this ability right over here, the Consecrating Aura, it is capable of spending all of your mana for the sake of dealing insane amounts of damage. So the more mana you have, the more damage you're going to be dealing, and this exponentially rises. So if you stack mana with a character like this, actually, I would be, if I stacked mana, I would be dealing so much more damage than I am right now. So we could actually like see 30k, 40k ticks. I'm not even kidding. However, the playstyle is a little bit more wonky, and what I mean by that is that to recover that mana back, we're gonna need to use reversal. What reversal does is it puts you 2 seconds wherever you were, and the shape and state, so like your HP, your mana, and your positioning, 2 seconds before. It rewinds you, right? So if I'm running like this, I press reversal, 2 seconds back. So it kind of like creates this situation that like you can gain all of your mana back, but you're gonna also like sacrifice your positioning and go back in the time. So when you go full pious offering, which is like the, you know, bread and butter kind of for the consecrating aura. I think I might even be the only one that's playing this like this. So you spend all of your mana, right? Thanks to the pious offering when you use this, and the entire thing just dips. You immediately need to reversal. However, what this does is that like every judgment is a reversal, and therefore there's going to be some sort of like a rubber banding effect in your playstyle. Every 4 seconds at the very least, you're going to be rubber banding. So boom judgment, boom go back, and then we continue our run. Boom judgment, boom go back. You know what I mean? It will always be the same, and this kind of like just a little bit disruptive for me. I didn't really enjoy this gameplay. So what I did was I stayed as Javelin. It deals very good damage, extremely good damage, and it scales from exactly the same stats, which we have not talked about yet. It's healing effectiveness. Another pro of this character is that like it is incredibly easy to scale both the tankiness and the damage that it deals with kind of the same stats. Actually, we are gaining spell damage to our consecrating aura from healing effectiveness, and to our holy trail again from healing effectiveness. It's actually pretty insane. As you can see over here, it says consecrate ground gains 1 spell damage per 5% healing effectiveness. And then you go over here, spell damage per 5% healing effectiveness +1. So it's exactly the same thing, same scaling. So you want healing effectiveness. Well, guess what? Healing effectiveness actually increases your healing done by the healing hands. And we have a lot of healing hand procs. So we are like both scaling our defenses and offensive at the same time. So thanks to the same scaling and the same playstyle, I ended up playing Javelin for the longest time. Ended up finding this item right over here, which gave me 4 judgment. Now I said, okay, it would be stupid not to scale judgment at this point. And this was pretty recent. So I'm already on like level 92 or something. You know, take this as you will. How you're going to be playing is going to come down to you. Are you going to be like playing like I do? So the Javelin, these points that you see over here, they are buffing judgment. The point that you go over here, the only reason to go down here is to buff your next judgment. So when we scaled judgment, I dropped my strategic patience and I went with the Sacred Forge, and I dropped a couple of points from my duration in the consecration aura, and I dropped a single point from the destructive impact. Have a feeling to these. You can definitely drop 1 more point from each one. It kind of feels a little bit worse to play because the duration is definitely setting up so that like you need more mana regen, or you need less mana regen the more duration you have, because you don't have to judgment again for the longer time. And at the same time, the area obviously gives a little bit more quality of life and easier gameplay to the consecrating aura. But you could put those points into right over here, the Divine Destruction, which is obviously going to be scaling your damage a little bit higher. You could still put more points into Pious Offering, which is obviously going to be costing you more mana when it comes to, you know, the skill itself. So this is gonna be kind of up to you. But I would say that like when you're playing Judgment and Javelin in the early game without having this many points into Judgment, and that's going to be my suggestion to you, is that max out Flaming Soul and max out the destructive impact with Lingering Force. And basically never mind Purifying Flames, never mind Pious Offering, and never mind Divine Destruction. Just play this, for screen clear, get rid of like the peasants, so you don't necessarily need to vault out reversal after every cast. and you use this guy for basically just going to be like single targets or like heavier units or units that are far away. So that's going to be and that was my playstyle for the longest time until I ended up finding the Judgment +4 Sentinel Relic. And afterwards, since I have 25 points, I was like, okay, let's main Judgment now. So that's going to be my suggestion to you as well. But I'm setting the base. You can definitely do it so that like you can even play full Pious Offering. You're gonna need to scale mana, of course, in that case. So let's jump into a little bit of the other abilities, right? So what do we do? What we do with them? What they're capable of doing? We have the Healing Hands. I tried the damaging Healing Hands a little bit. You know, I already have like 2 points over here. It's scaling the same way. It gives you like spell damage for healing effectiveness. So I was like, oh my, this is insane. So I went to the Virtue of Patience, and it just like has a splash damage effect every time you come like this at the end. And to be honest with you, it's pretty underwhelming. And we don't really scale it with our stats because it's not a damage over time. This one's a direct damage. Most of our damage attributes are going to be damage over time. So I'm guessing that's also why it's a little bit weak. But I ended up deciding that like Healing Hands, if anything, I really wanted to like heal me the most. I want the immunity time and I want the cooldown reduction. So that's fine. This is how it looks. There are certainly some stuff that are not mandatory. So like 1 point over here is not necessary. 2 points over there is not necessary. If you would like to put those points into urgent healing, the direct upfront healing, be my guest, you could definitely do. What I would really suggest you to do is keep 4 points into this, keep 4 points into that, the Cleric's Hammer, so that you have 100% chance to gain the Healing Hands buff when you manage to hit something with your Judgment. The first hit, it needs to be a melee hit. And also you need this point as well, the Sun Shroud, so that like you can just get out of dodge. There are some like beams that are like turning around, very deadly. You're trying to turn with them. Now what this does is that like if you're stuck in a corner and the beam is coming to you, you can just like go through the beam with an immunity. Especially that scenario, or like going over puddles on the floor, has been incredibly valuable to me, incredibly valuable. Just because of that, I've survived multiple times. And our last ability, well, last two, I suppose. This is Holy Aura, is complete buffer. I actually have something that I would like to say about this. It increases your healing. It increases your elemental resistances. At level 16, getting this much elemental resistance is absolutely nuts, by the way. It's incredible. This Demoralizing Aura, you don't really need a point in. It's just an extra point that I have thanks to my relic. Like you can remove this one. So the rest is kind of mandatory, I would say. The Burning Blows is kind of really, really good. Well, Raya's Fury is very nice as well. So all those things combined is a very good supporting ability. However, if you press the ability, right, it gives you like 30% increased damage and 15% additional elemental resistance. So this is like very, very underwhelming, and the mana cost is crazy high. So what I would suggest is that like when you're playing in the early game and scaling Javelin and going for like the strategic patience instead of buffing your judgments, I would say use this, right? So like right before casting Javelin, use it, cast your Javelin, and that's done. Your Javelin is like stronger. But when I'm talking about like Judgment, and especially if you have any points into Pious Offering whatsoever, guys, don't press this because you're nerfing yourself. The mana cost itself, like you would rather have that mana to cast for the Judgment, so that like the Judgment sucks in more mana and deals more damage. Does that make sense? Never mind pressing this. You kind of want to like get back to full. Just use it as passive as it is. It is extremely good as well still. It's incredible. And to be honest with you, that 30% damage and additional elemental resistances falls off big time in the late game. In the very early game, it's pretty good. It's very, very early game. It's pretty good. So Reversal is going to be the last ability that we are going to be using. I would like you to check what it does first. What it does is it increases the damage that the enemy takes by 30%, and it also increases the damage that the enemy takes from damage over time by 60%. If I am not mistaken, also you're able to like create this rift at the start and at the end of your arrival. So if I was here 2 seconds later and there 2 seconds earlier on my cursor, then I'm going to be creating a rift that is like pulsing in each zone, and I'll be, applying this debuff to everything in those two zones. But what if I'm standing still for 2 seconds, right next to a boss? Then I'm gonna reversal, and both of the rifts are going to be there. So it's multiplicatively double dipping these debuffs onto the boss. And I would go ahead and say something along the lines of like, volatile reversal is probably a ridiculously strong debuff to put on a boss that like every single sentinel build out there probably needs this. It's incredibly strong. You just sit next to a boss as they are spawning or like animating, engaging, whatever, 2 seconds, and then you press volatile reversal, and the next 3 seconds they're going to be taking ridiculously more damage from you. The best thing about this is that our damage is damage over time, so we are not only utilizing the Harbinger of Dust, but also time rifts, and we're using it double time because we're hitting with both, we're staying still and we're hitting with both pulses. Afterwards, your damage is going to be exponentially increasing, and you'll be seeing ticks around like 30,000 fire damage over time ticks. Yeah, it's going to be ridiculous. That's why our single target is good in this character. Apart from that, remember, if you're going to be playing something like Pious Offering, which converts more of your mana to damage, you will not want Time Lost Wisdom, because Time Lost Wisdom takes away the capability of giving you mana back, right? So keep that in mind. So those were the skills. Let's go over the passives a little bit. One thing that I would like to tell you about the passives is that there are a lot of nodes that are sort of good, but we just don't have enough points anymore. So this is the combination that I have ended up making, simply because I really enjoy playing really tanky and mobile. If you would like to play a little bit more offensive, it's probably possible a combination to find here, right? So that's all I'm going to say. This is sort of how I leveled as well. I go into Juggernaut 5 points, I go into 5 points Armor Clad. That's usually what I do in Sentinel. But this is the ending, simply because like Healing Hands is incredible. And 30% cooldown reduction on your Healing Hands is just ridiculous. It's insane. At the same time, this node is giving health, so why not? But if you don't want this node, you could definitely put them into Vitality. I would definitely suggest this node. This looks fine. I wouldn't really change anything at all. I've taken just 1 point into Forge Guard. You could do this very late game as well. It's just 2% block rate. I've taken 5 points into Void Knight. I've done this about like mid game. It gives you good health, void resistance, physical resistance, but at any point of the game, if you feel like you're hungry for these stats, feel free to put 1 more point or less points into it. But you do need 5 points for the volatile reversal. As I said, not in the early game at all, because volatile reversal again is going to be used against bosses, heavy bosses. During the campaign, there are not so many heavy bosses. If you do it right, they're going to be deleted by Javelin anyways. But at the same time, you might as well take a few more moments to kill them instead of putting 5 more points to get a volatile reversal. You could just try to rush for Judgement. That's what I did. In the early game, I just put every point into Paladin. And I usually start with 1 point into Honor, just 2% block rate, and 4 points into Conviction. And then I go full time into Valor. Valor is HP and healing effectiveness. As we discussed, healing effectiveness is going to be our bread and butter. From here, after 10 points, this is going to be unlocking the Holy Icon. The Holy Icon, I maxed it out. There are going to be 3 points remaining to you to reach Sanctuary Guardian. Those 3 points are going to be going into Heaven Fire, which is going to give you a little bit more spell damage for your damage over time, obviously. And then afterwards, you're going to be getting Sanctuary Guardian maxed out. From there, I actually go into Faith Armor and max this out as well. In my recent video, one of my recent videos, I have covered the fact that I don't have, Faith Armor anymore, simply because it gives me only 5% more armor. And the crit avoidance, I get it from elsewhere. But when you don't have the crit avoidance from elsewhere available to you, you should click this and you should max it out. So you're maxing out Sanctuary Guardian, Faith Armor, and, around those times, you're obviously going to be having Judgment open. This is when you're going to be, removing your leveling ability into Judgment and going for the Consecrating Ground as soon as possible. And then scale its damage over time. From there, you probably go for couple points into Reverence only, into full-time Light of Raya, because movement speed is everything right now for this character. You really are traveling all the time. Our all mobility is kind of movement speed, so you want the maximum movement speed on this character. Afterwards, you could definitely look like this. I want to talk about armor a little bit. Remember, the strength is capable of giving you damage over time to consecrating aura. I think Javelin is in fact not gaining from strength. It is. Even Javelin is gaining from strength. It's going to be gaining damage over time from it. So strength is very, very valuable. I would definitely suggest taking strength. Since we are an armor stacking character as well, strength is capable of giving you 4% armor additively, obviously. And yeah, it helps up big time. So I would definitely suggest you to check out strength stacking. That's also like why we have Juggernaut maxed out here. That's also why we have Raya's strength 100%. There are other like things that you can go for here. One thing that I should say is that like if you're going to be going for pious offering again, this guy, I would suggest you to do something like defiance and dedication. Now I'm not gonna go ahead and like give you where you can do this. You probably have to drop the Phoenix Fire and its corresponding thingy for those things, and maybe like you drop some more points from the Abyssal Endurance, and then go full-time in attunements, because attunement is mana and you will need to stack mana. So you're gonna need like more mana items. I have been keeping some over here. Perhaps I, maybe if I try kind of thing. So there's this tier 7 Regalia. There's this tier 7 Crystal Wand. Crystal Wand is also the best base for mana stacking. So there's like 160 mana on that wand, 150 mana on this chest. Just by 2 items, I'm gaining 310 mana, which is already more than what I have. So I would be sitting at like 560 mana right now by just 2 items without any other change. That would already give me insane amounts of DPS if I was Pious Offering. You definitely could do that, but it's not easy to itemize. And remember, when you're gaining something, you're always trading something in games like this. In my case, I would be trading, I don't know, a different weapon. Obviously, like elemental damage over time is a tier 7 roll on my weapon. You can see the way that I rolled this weapon yesterday on stream on a video short of mine on my channel. And then we have this chest over here. So like you're going to be sacrificing some prefix, obviously, for the mana, or suffix, depending on like where it rolls, or the base of a weapon as well, right? Yeah, so this will be up to you. Like, in my opinion, like my suggestion would be like, see where the wind is going to take you. Like, just know all these capabilities and what you could do while leveling. In my opinion, stay Javelin, because like it's much easier to play that way. I think so, at least. But yeah, when you have more points into Judgment, convert the Judgment and see where your itemization is going to be taking you. If your itemization takes you to crazy amounts of mana and you're playing softcore, by all means, just go full Pious Offering, see how it revolves, and at the same time, maybe check out the Urgent Inquisition. This is something that I wanted to try. Like, for instance, 3 points into Pious Offering, or 1 point into Pious Offering and 1 point into Urgent Inquisition. I don't know which one fares better. I wish I knew for this video, but I do not know. And I'm going to be creating a new character very soon, so I don't have the time to find out in the next couple of days. If I end up finding out in near future, I'll comment down below. When it comes to itemization, I'm not going to mouse over everything, but there are some certain things that you can definitely chase. So for instance, this Judgment Hands, right? Extremely good because it gives you fire penetration and it gives you attunement base. The base of the item, the 8 armor and void resistance, extremely good as well. And on top of that's usually what you kind of struggle to find in uniques. You have like a low level unique, but it drops with like 4 LP, for instance. You're like, okay, this is insane, let's just put fixes on it. The base of the item matters a lot in the late game as well, right? So like when you mouse over this, for instance, is 700 armor and armor mitigation also applying to damage over time, right? So like that is insane. That is very, very irreplaceable, even if there's like an LP4. So you're definitely trading something there. So in this case, Hand of Judgment actually comes with like a good base. That void resistances and the armor, they both are in a good value. So you put an LP2 Judgment, if you can make something like mine with another attunement on top, you're going to be scaling your damage nicely. You could also put strength onto this, up to you. Good movement speed boots. I would say probably use armor base belts. To be honest with you, you could use like cleansing belts, but our main stats two main stats when it comes to affixes that are not necessarily attributes. It is elemental damage over time and healing effectiveness. Please try to chase those. The area of, increased area for area skills is kind of like a quality of life, and it's only capable of rolling on necklace and hands. So if you can chase those two, it's completely up to you. Soul Bastion, not necessary. It's kind of cool, but you need to like overcap your resistances because it puts a mark for death for you as well. It's definitely not necessary. It's kind of like a fun item to play with, I suppose. Let's try to finalize this video by talking about, because it's been 30 minutes, I see it, by talking about defenses of this character, okay? And what sort of stats I would like to stack even further than this. So I talked about armor a lot. I said like armor is incredible value for this. And then on top of this, I would like you to consider going for void damage taken as physical. What you can do is, the interesting part about these stats is that, look, it's 30% of the void damage that I take is coming as physical to me. And that's only a tier 2 roll. So you could easily seal this. Tier 2 is a very high chance to seal. The same thing can be said on the helm. Is capable of rolling necrotic damage taken as physical. You could do it vice versa, I think. So you could have void over here and necro on the chest, of course. And as you can see, even tier 1 is 18%. Like that already makes a big difference, because as you know, armor is capable of being full effects versus physical, and then it has 70% effect versus other damage types, right? So what you're doing is you're kind of like using your full effect of your armor, which we already stack really high, versus this type of damage as well, a portion of this type of damage. So that being said, there are some like sentinel idols that you can utilize that are going to be giving you the capability of like fire and cold and lightning as well. So the elemental types are going to be taken as physical too. If you want to be like a godlike tank, I would rather use those instead of using stuff like healing effectiveness on the idols. You're obviously going to be sacrificing a little bit of DPS, right? But you're going to be gaining really good tank. Really good tank. So consider that. I am not using them right now because I didn't necessarily find like good rolls. But I'm 100% sure when you're stacked this much armor, if you especially make cold and fire, because like there are some very deadly cold and fire damage dealing monsters out there. If you take like a heavy percentage of like cold and fire as physical, you're going to be that much more tanky. One more thing that I really enjoy about this character's survival is that like the recovery of this character is insane. We already have like decentish health regeneration, right? Like about 81, while in combat maybe I'm gaining it. It's a bit more buffs, but the more important thing is the healing hands, right? I'm always mobile with the healing hands, so I have like a very big heal going on, and I gain the healing hands again while hitting this. So like there's like a very high uptime of healing hands, and this kind of keeps on healing you even during a boss fight. Like the first thing that you press is obviously heal potion when you're like in a oh shit moment, but the second thing that you press is healing hands to get out of dodge. And that also heals you. That's such a cooler. With other characters that I have played, unless they're like heavily life leeching, in the late game, I just couldn't rely on my potions. They just don't heal enough, I run around with like 3000 HP, right? And then the potion that you click ends up like healing you just very little, it feels like. So like I do one mistake, and now I have 4 potions in my belt, and all of my potions are just gone to that mistake. Now I have no potions for the rest of the fight, or until I pick up new potions that are spawning from a boss fight. So this kind of like a weird side of this game that in my opinion you should consider fixing, like some regeneration or like health back sort of a scenario for your build as well. That's very important. So I'm gonna finalize this video over here. I am very sorry if I forgot something crucial, but one thing that I'm going to be telling you is that like if you have any questions whatsoever, you feel free to do it in the comment section down below and I'll get to you. Thank you very much for watching YouTube. Peace out. Cheers.